What's up, YouTube? I'm here to do my prediction video for UFC Fight Night Smith versus Teixeira. For the people that don't know, there was a UFC Fight Night this Wednesday in 2 days, the 13th. Let's start the bomb. The first fight is Chase Sherman versus Isaac Villanueva. I think that's how you say it. To me, these guys are both just straight up strikers. I don't think this fight's gonna hit the ground. To me, Chase Sherman's been looking really solid recently. I think his overall boxing has been looking a lot better. Um, it, it I haven't seen Isaac fight a lot of high level guys. I know he's on a decent win streak. I think he's gone like 9-1 in his last 10 or something like that. But I'm just leaning towards Chase Sherman. I feel like he's fought in the UFC before. I just prefer the way he's looked recently. So I think it's gonna be a solid boxing match until one of these guys knocks each other out. But I'm leaning towards Chase Sherman to get like a round 2 knockout. Next is Hunter Azur versus Brian Kelleher. And to me, I think this is basically going to come down to wrestling, and I think Hunter's just the better wrestler. I think overall striking jiu-jitsu, I do give the slight edge to Brian Kelleher. But, like I said, I don't think it's going to matter too much. I mean, Brian can always catch this guy in a guillotine. He has a nasty guillotine, and he can catch almost anybody in it. But I think other than him catching Hunter in a guillotine, I think Hunter's going to control all 3 rounds and win a 30-27 decision with his just better wrestling. Next is Gabriel Benitez versus Omar. I don't want to say this dude's whole name. This is basically 2 really solid strikers going at it. I think Gabriel is definitely the better jiu-jitsu guy, but he doesn't have the wrestling to force it to the ground. I just think Omar just hits way harder. I think that these guys are going to be striking, and every time these guys land, I think they'll land about the same amount. I think Omar's just going to do way more damage every time he hits. And I think this is what we're going to see the whole fight. It's just them hitting each other about the same, but Omar doing more damage. I think eventually Omar's going to tag him and knock him out, probably in the middle of the second. Next is Sijara Eubanks versus Sarah Morris, and to me these 2 chicks are the same. They're striker jiu-jitsu chicks. I just think Sijara is way bigger, and she's better overall. I think her striking, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu are just all better than Sarah's. I don't know if she'll finish Sarah, but I think she's going to dominate all 3 rounds and win a 30-27 decision. Next, we got Michael Johnson versus Thiago Moses, and to me, Michael Johnson's biggest weakness has always been that even though he has good takedown defense, if you get him to the ground, he kind of gets submitted a lot. And I feel like striking-wise, these guys are pretty close, but Moses is a really solid black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he has decent takedowns. I feel like if Moses can get this to the ground once, it's going to be like Michael Johnson's last fight against Stevie Ray, where it was like, the moment Stevie Ray got 1 takedown, he was demolishing Johnson. And I think that's what's going to be like this fight. You know, Moses is going to have a little bit of trouble getting it, but I think if he gets 1 takedown, he's just going to be able to smash Johnson. And this is what I think is going to happen. I think sooner or later, the striking will be close, Moses will get a takedown, and once he does, I think he's going to either win by rear naked choke or arm triangle submission. So I got Thiago Moses winning by sub. Next, we got Andre Arlovski versus Philip Lins, and to me, Andre Arlovski's been kind of getting fucked over with a lot of these decisions recently. I mean, he's gone like 2-4, 2-5 in his last like 6 or 7. But I honestly thought he pretty clearly beat Walt Harris. I also think he pretty clearly beat the Brazilian dude. I can't remember his name. And then the Tai Tuivasa fight was pretty close, but I thought he won that too. I'm just saying, those are 3 losses, 3 of like his like 5 or so that I thought he pretty freaking clearly won. The one he lost to the Russian and to Jairza Rosenstrike, he clearly lost those 2, but the other 3, at least 2 of them, the Walt Harris one and the Brazilian one, were really bad. I'm just saying that because I feel like he should be on a better, his average should be looking better than it is. I feel like Philip Lins, you know, even though he looks good, he hasn't been fighting super elite guys. To me, I mean, if Philip Lins uses his wrestling, he might be able to win this pretty easy. But I just don't think he is. I think it's going to be a kickboxing match, and I just think Andre's the better kickboxer. I think that Andre's going to win at least 2 of the 3 rounds and win a decision. Unless they fuck him over again like they did in those, especially the Walt Harris and the Brazilian one fight, where he pretty clearly won 2-1 in my opinion. Then I think he's going to win this one 2-1 as well. I think he should win a 29-28 decision just with his better boxing. On to the main card. The first fight is Carl Robinson versus Marvin Vettori. And to me, this is just 2 really, really good kickboxers going at it. But I just think Carl Robinson is the much better kickboxer. I think Marvin Vettori is primarily just boxing. I think Carl Robinson has the much faster strikes and cleaner overall technique. I think, you know, Marvin Vettori, we saw kind of against what was it, Israel, that guys with longer reach and faster strike can just kind of outpoint him. And I think that's what we're going to see in this fight. I think Carl Robinson just kind of outpoints him for 3 rounds and wins a unanimous decision. Next, we got Ricky Simone versus Ray Borg. And this fight's tough just because I think Borg is the better wrestler, but I think Ricky's going to have a pretty solid size advantage. I think they both have like really fast pace, high energy styles, but I'm just leaning towards Ricky just because of the size. I think if they were the same size, I would lean towards Borg because, like I said, I do think he's the overall better wrestler, but I don't think it's going to matter. I think Ricky's going to be able to keep up with him. He's not going to get tired because Ricky can fight at a super fast pace too. And then I just think that it's one of those things where the size is going to be the biggest difference, and I think Ricky's going to edge out at least 2 of the 3 rounds. Next, we got Alexander Hernandez versus Drew Dober, and to me, Alexander Hernandez, I thought he lost his last fight pretty clearly. I felt like he didn't want to engage at all. I felt like the Brazilian dude, I can't remember his name, but was just standing in the middle of the cage, and he was landing the slightly better strikes. Neither guy was landing a lot, and Hernandez was just circling around him on the outside of the cage the whole time. I mean, to me, he wasn't fighting like how he normally fights, where he just moves forward nonstop, and I think it was because of the loss to Cowboy. If he does that to Drew Dober, I think Drew Dober is just going to do what the Brazilian guy did. I just think Drew Dober is slightly better at striking, so he'll be able to land more shots and win a clear decision. And it was in Hernandez's hometown, his last fight. That's why I think he won that decision that he pretty clearly lost. Yeah, I mean, even if Alexander Hernandez fights normal, I think it's going to be really close. I think that Drew Dober has the better striking. I think Hernandez has the better wrestling. Overall grappling is probably pretty even. So if Hernandez fights normal, I think this fight will be closer. It'll probably be a split decision. But like I said, I still lean towards Drew Dober because he's definitely the better striker of the two. Next, we got Ben Rothwell versus Ovince St. Preux. And to me, in terms of overall athleticism, I give the edge to St. Preux. My biggest thing was his conditioning. I'm going to look at like at heavyweight. And what's his speed going to look like at heavyweight? You know what I mean? These are things that it's hard to tell how he's going to look since I've never seen him fight at heavyweight. I always thought he was a decent light heavyweight. He looked like he had a solid athletic build. And when I see guys move out to heavyweight, it's like, okay, is he going to be like 220 or is he going to be like 240? You know what I mean? Until I see what weight he's going to come in, it's really hard to tell. Until I see him fight, it's hard to tell what his condition is going to look like. I'm just leaning towards Ben Rothwell because he's the more I've seen him fight a lot. I know that he can fight for 3 rounds. I know that he's gotten 3rd round finishes and 3rd round rallies. So even if OSP starts strong, I just lean towards Ben because I think he is the heavier hitter of the two. And like I said, I just feel like I believe in him more in the later rounds just because I've seen it. So I got Ben Rothwell winning by 2nd or 3rd round knockout. And finally, on to the main event. It's Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira. And to me, this fight's really close. I think people are not giving Glover the credit he deserves. In terms of striking, I do think Smith has a slight advantage. In terms of overall grappling, I give the slight advantage to Glover. I think that even though Smith is a solid black belt, I don't think he's as good off his back as he is on top. I think that if Glover's on top of him, you know, he's going to have the advantage. And I do think Glover is the overall, in terms of, in height, Smith's bigger, but I think in terms of body size, Glover's bigger. And like I said, when Glover's on top of guys, he smashes them. Like a lot of the times when he gets on top of dudes, like he just stretches them out and either TKOs them or rear naked chokes them. I think if Glover doesn't get caught with a lot of shots and he's able to get this fight to the ground, I think he's going to win by sub. I think it's going to be a close back and forth fight, but I think Glover is eventually going to get a takedown. And when he's on top, I think we're going to see him kind of put a beating on Smith and either win by TKO or submission. So yeah, I got Glover by probably round 2 or 3 sub. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.